Twin Jades of Jiangdong. Chapter 5. Crossing Swords. Zhou Yu walked very slowly, and in the misty autumn rain, he recalled the prominent officials and eminent lords that he had met back when his father was in Luoyang. Perhaps, he could write a letter to them, but in the chaos the imperial court was embroiled in because of Dongzhou entering the capital, it was difficult for them to guarantee the safety of their own lives. How would they have the effort to spare to help other people with their matters? On the slope of the mountain, the sky was darkening. Zhou Yu hesitated for a long while, before knocking on the door of a temple. "Masters Haijing," Zhou Yu said, "let me borrow a lantern." The wooden door opened with a creak, and the young acolyte said, "The great master requests for Zhou Lang to join him for a cup of tea and to warm himself by the fire." Zhou Yu smiled. "Others calling me Zhou Lang is fine, but why are you also joining them in calling me that?" Saying this, he rubbed his finger along the young acolyte's face, before placing his fishing rod by the door, taking off his bamboo hat, and without waiting for permission, he set foot in the temple. An old monk was currently grinding a tea cake. His white brows and white hair framed his eyes, and when Zhou Yu walked in, he didn't speak. Instead, he sat down in the hallway filled with the autumn wind and rain that swept across the mountain. Zhou Yu's father used to come to Mount Gu a lot when he was still alive to play chess against the old monk. After Zhou Yu bid farewell to the world, from time to time, Zhou Yu would come by to visit. Whenever he arrived, his hands would be empty, and they would never talk. Since the old monk practiced the mute sex teachings, which dictated that one should speak very little and act more, he almost never spoke. Once in a while, he would send someone a significant glance. If they understood, then they understood; if they were unable to perceive it, then that was that. The boiling hot tea flowed into the ceramic cup in front of Zhou Yu. The surrounding mountains were silent, with only the green pines on the slopes let out quiet sha-sha sounds. Usually, Zhou Yu loved this place the most since he could speak freely, or he could even choose to not even speak at all. If he wanted to, he could talk; if he didn't wish to, he could just sit there, drink tea and stare off into space. How did the great master know that I would come today, to even have prepared a cup for me? Zhou Yu thought about it for a moment, before answering his own question. Yes, it's most likely because Lu Zijin also crossed the door of this temple once. You two are like a weight that does not leave the scale, and a scale that does not leave the weight. The young acolyte smiled as he walked forward. When young Master Lu came by earlier, he also managed to get a cup of tea. The cup that Zhou Lang is currently drinking from is the exact one he was drinking from earlier. Now, we can wash one less and spare ourselves some effort. Haijing handed the cup to Zhou Yu, who received it with two hands. The young acolyte walked into the hallway, his hands sliding the paper doors closed. After the dull sliding sound, Zhou Yu and Haijing turned into two paper cutouts cast by the warm yellow light. "No news has come yet from the merchants who traveled towards the Silk Road," Zhou Yu sighed. If father was still an official in Luoyang, then perhaps Shu County wouldn't be in such dire straits now. Haijing only listened quietly to Zhou Yu's words. He didn't cast any judgment; all he did was lift the teapot and add more tea to Zhou Yu's cup. Zhou Yu continued, "When I compare myself to my late father, the difference is really too large." As he spoke, his shadow shrank in on itself a little, and a note of self-reproach entered his voice as he continued. "I cannot resolve the worries of my mother and neighbors." The wind swept through the mountains and thousands of pine trees swayed and rattled. Haijing poured out a third cup, which Zhou Yu drank. He then was silent for a moment, before continuing, "Great master, I'm considering if I should personally take a trip to Luoyang in a few days." Haijing's response was only to glance once at Zhou Yu, before the little acolyte pulled the paper door open, saying politely, "Young Master Zhou, it's time to head down the mountain, the sky is already dark." Saying this, the young acolyte turned to gather some items. Zhou Yu placed the empty cup lip down on the table, pondering for a few short moments, before saying hesitantly, but I am just one of the common people. I have not passed the Xiaolian, nor do I hold any power in the capital. Autumn is coming, and my aging mother at home is afraid of the cold, which really makes me unable to not worry about her. The young acolyte walked over, a bag of medicinal herbs in his left hand and a lantern in his right, saying, "This medicine, made into a paste, is for the old madam. Young Master Zhou, if you would." Zhou Yu took the medicine and hugged it to his chest, saying to the young acolyte, "No need to see me off, I'll be going now." But neither of them had expected that Great Masters Haijing would personally walk down the hallway, put on wooden clogs, take the lantern from the young acolyte's hand, and make an after you gesture, indicating that he would personally see Zhou Yu down the mountain. An idea flashed through Zhou Yu's mind, and he suddenly understood that today, Haijing might open his Buddha's mouth and tell himself a little something. After all, the Mu Temple on Mount Gu rarely saw visitors, and whether you were a person of important standing or some great landowner of a region, all would have the door shut in their face by Haijing. Renowned scholars of the world had also never been seen off by this old master of the mute sect of Chan Buddhism who practiced the core concept of inner peace. This was a historical, unprecedented first. "Great Master, please," Zhou Yu hurried to bow. With that, Haijing's outfit, a set of monk's robes slowly turning white, fluttered in the autumn wind as he carried the lantern, walking in front, entering the curtain of rain as thin as ox hairs flying all about in the air. Zhou Yu followed behind, walking along silently. The mountain road was as dark as pitch, and the only spot of light was Haijing's lantern up ahead. Zhou Yu's thoughts wandered for a long time, but in the end, he couldn't resist opening his mouth. Does the Great Master have any words he wants to say? But Haijing's footsteps did not stop, shining the light of this single bright lamp and the shadows of the two people across the mountain, through the pine grove, and over the pitch-black land. He led Zhou Yu straight to the foot of the mountain, where the hubbub of Shu County was not far in the distance. Haijing handed the lantern over to Zhou Yu, who stood there dumbly. Right after, Haijing put his hands together, fingers interlaced and palms pressed together, as he bowed in farewell to Zhou Yu. "Great Master." But then, Haijing made another movement that was wholly out of Zhou Yu's expectations. In a formal gesture of respect from the Chan school, he performed a great gesture of respect by kneeling and kowtowing to Zhou Yu. "Great Master." Immediately, Zhou Yu was a little at a loss for what to do, and he was about to kneel down to return the gesture, but Haijing rose. With a turn and the long sleeves of his monk's robes fluttering, he left just like that, not even turning back to give Zhou Yu a look. With the lantern in hand, Zhou Yu stood in front of the main gate to the monastery, and at that moment a multitude of emotions coursed through him. Was Haijing's intention to let himself travel far, or was there another meaning to it? It wasn't until the chill gradually crept over him that Zhou Yu, lantern still in hand, took step after hesitant step, finally returning home. As soon as he entered the estate, servants immediately rushed up, each of them exclaiming anxiously that they had waited for the young master for a good part of the night. The ones in charge of tending fires went to start one, the ones in charge of brewing some ginger tea brewed some, and the estate was filled with a bustle of activity. Though Zhou Yu heard the commotion, he didn't react to any of it. It wasn't until he had changed into a clean set of robes that his mother rushed out, reproaching him, "Where did you run off to? Spending a good half of your day there." The family was almost worried to death. Zhou Yu broke a bing apart with his hands and fed it to the falcon, saying, "I took a stroll up the mountain." "Did you go see old monks Haijing?" Mother Zhou asked. Zhou Yu hurried to nod, and with that, Madame Zhou sat down across from her son. Separating the mother and son was a low table. Zhou Yu then said, "Bafu's letter has also come." Madame Zhou looked over the letter once, before saying, "This is a really big inconvenience on his part. Making him run around all day at your beck and call, you're mistreating him." Zhou Yu replied, "Bafu did investigate, but he didn't manage to get any news either." More likely than not, he also doesn't have any way of resolving this. Madame Zhou let out another sigh, her forehead wrinkled in worry. Zhou Yu pulled out that bag of medicine and said, "Great Masters Haijing and I chatted for a while. Back in the day, when your father was still here," Madame Zhou sighed, "he treated you very well, and before the mute sect was even founded, he said that your accomplishments in the future would not be lesser than his." Zhou Yu's heart was moved at that, but he didn't dare to turn to meet his mother's gaze. Madame Zhou, upon seeing the medicine, then asked, "What is this?" "The medicine that great Masters Haijing prescribed for you." Zhou Yu opened the parcel, and Madame Zhou took a glance, before saying, "This medicine was meant for you, right? Mother's not ill." Zhou Yu also felt this was a little strange, and upon seeing that the little bag only had a few herbs in it, he brought it under the light to inspect more closely. Madame Zhou said, "Isn't this Shuangbi Ch?" Zhou Yu fell silent. In that instant, he understood great Masters Haijing's meaning. A piece of brown wrapping paper, containing 3 kinds of herbal medicine, Zhimu, Yuanzi, and Shuangbi Ch. Shuangbi Ch, Zhou Yu murmured. But Madame Zhou hadn't understood the meaning hidden in these medicines, nor did she understand that the great gesture of respect that Haijing had performed at the gates of the monastery was to send Zhou Yu off, to request that he go to Luoyang and fix the world and calm the people, so that he could save the living beings of the world. Mother Zhou looked towards the hallway, saying, "You heir?" "Yes, yes." Zhou Yu lifted his head to look at his mother. Mother Zhou said, "How much longer are you planning to stay at home to keep your old mother company?" Zhou Yu replied, "Mother, I'm always worried about you." In these past few days, Madame Zhou interrupted Zhou Yu's words. Mother was constantly wondering if it would be better to arrange a marriage for you, so that you could settle down in Shu County, run the silk store, marry a wife and have children. Or if I should follow your father's wishes for you that he had when he was alive, and urge you to spend all your effort on the world instead. Zhou Yu's eyes immediately reddened. That year, Madame Zhou said, "Mother asked you if you wanted to go with Bafu to Changsha. You said that there were a number of family matters, both large and small, that required your attention, and that you would be in mourning for 3 years and not travel far. In reality, what you were thinking in your heart, Mother also knows." Zhou Yu didn't say any more. Madame Zhou continued, "As of today, the business has also come to a halt. With how I see it, the store should be closed soon. If you keep waiting like this, the years of your youth will all be wasted in this kind of a place. When your father was alive, he had you read books not so that you would hole yourself up in Shu County," Madame Zhou said as she rose. "As for the rest, Mother doesn't need to say any more, you do as you see fit." Zhou Yu lifted his head, sending his mother off with his eyes. In the depth of the night, Zhou Yu knelt in the courtyard, and he kowtowed 3 times, with great respect and diligence, in the direction of his mother's room. Madame Zhou's shadow was cast onto the window, and only after Zhou Yu rose and left did the door get pushed open with a creak. Many days later, in front of the misty mountain stream, Zhou Yu, with a sword strapped to his back and a satchel tied to him, rode his horse as he and Lu Su traveled along one bank of Lake Chao, entering Mount Gu. "Zaijian. No need to see me any further." Zhou Yu reined his horse to a stop, before shouting backwards to Lu Su, "I'll go first to Luoyang to check out the situation, you can go back now." Lu Su replied, No, I'd better go back and give them a heads up and go with you on this journey. No matter how I look at you, you look like a feral dog, that's not a great look." Zhou Yu smiled. "When I'm not around, I leave my mother in your care." Lu Su's forehead wrinkled slightly, and he asked, "You'll be all right?" Zhou Yu smiled and waved his hand. Lu Su teased him in response. "Now that you're going to see your Bafu, your expression is so happy that it's blossoming with joy." Zhou Yu realized that he had been too obvious in his expression, and he immediately adopted a serious look, saying solemnly, "In all seriousness, I'm going to Luoyang just to figure out which direction the wind is blowing. Go quickly, Lu Su said. Don't explain, the sun is about to set. Zhou Yu. Lu Su tossed a heavy bag over, saying, keep it on you. And saying this, he chirrupied his horse to turn. Before he left, he remembered something else, and he said, when you see Sun Bafu, give him my regards. Zhou Yu then said, Zaijian. Lu Su, his back to Zhou Yu, turned his head slightly back. Zhou Yu continued, tell the family members of the merchants that they shouldn't worry, I'm going. Lu Su replied earnestly, return safely. No matter what, be safe and well. Chia. Chia. The two horses each left in their own direction, one returning to Shu County, while one headed towards Mount Gu, both taking leave of the other in the dense fog. Chia. Zhou Yu's voice had a note of uncontrollable joy as he raced through Mount Gu. Chia. The autumn sky above was vast, and the yellow leaves covered the ground. The falling leaves on either side of the military road danced across the heavens and earth in the wild wind as far as the eye could see. The fields were patch upon patch of golden yellow, as if the chessboard of the heavens and earth were covered with a bright woven carpet. Thousands of mountains sped by him and the rivers flowed swiftly as he left Yangzhou via the Lu River. One early morning, many days later, Zhou Yu managed to catch the first ferry passing through the torrential river. After landing on the other side, he didn't stop anymore, going north through Xiapi County before turning west. The distance between him and Xikang grew smaller and smaller, and the wild shrubbery and weeds on the side of the road and fields left to run wild also increased in number. Many days later, Zhou Yu, who had been sleeping outdoors, bowed in front of a creek, lifting some water in his cupped hands to wash his face and rinse his mouth, when he saw a corpse drifting down with the flow of the stream. Sword wounds covered the body. Zhou Yu was silent for a moment, only to see another corpse drift downstream. He poured the water from the water skin that he had just filled back into the stream, before leading his horse forward, one hand on the hilt of his sword. It wasn't until he had traveled some li away that he saw the corpses of citizens scattered alongside both sides of the road, their skeletons clearly defined, completely starved to death. Study medicine? Become a doctor and cure people's illnesses. His father's words resounded in his ears. I'm only afraid that though you may be able to save people, you won't be able to save the world. Study letters instead, be a literary man. What you are curing is the world, and who you are saving are the people. Young Zhou Yu hadn't understood the meaning of those words, and he merely turned his head to look in the direction of the splendor of Luoyang. Dazzling Yangzhou, with bamboo and silk pouring in, thousands of lanterns hung everywhere. I see that these, and those, aren't they all pretty good? Little Zhou Yu asked. After you grow up, you will understand, Zhou Yu sighed, stroking his beard as he shook his head indulgently. This year, Dongzhou invaded the capital, and the world experienced famine. Bodies of starved citizens covered the wilderness, and their corpses covered the streets. Across the desolate land, Zhou Yu could no longer recall that initial burst of giddiness and satisfaction that he had felt when he left home. His heart was heavy and burdened, and an inexplicable emotion welled up in it. He could still remember, when he was small, when he had come with his father to the capital, that Xikang and Hungnong had clearly not been like this then. It had not even been 10 years yet. How had things come to this? Zhou Yu rode alone on his horse as he wandered along the military road, a little bit of hesitation in his heart. This strange world was clearly no longer the Hungnong that he knew. The villages that he and his father had rested their feet at 8 years ago when they traveled to the capital had long since been burned to ruins, the humans had left, and the buildings stood empty. He needed to find Sun Ca's troops as soon as possible. Zhou Yu finally realized the severity of the situation, so he spurred his horse into heading west, endeavoring to find Sun Ca before night fell. But, just as he turned the corner around a mountain, he heard distant sounds of slaughter. In the twilight, blood covered the ground in rivulets by the bank of the stream, which was a startling scene to behold. Zhou Yu was greatly shocked by this. The entire stream had been dyed a purple-black, and it was obvious they had been fighting for almost a whole day. On one side of the battlefield was a group of soldiers wearing black armor, and the other side was wearing white helmets with red tassels. Only, under the fierce battle, the white armor had already been dirted, while the black armored troops each lifted the long blades in their hands, which danced up and down, forcing the white troops to the side of the stream. Several times, Zhou Yu wanted to move in, but he thought again about the opponent's prowess, and heading in alone to battle might be dangerous. He couldn't catch sight of the battle pennants of either side, so Zhou Yu directed his horse to wander around the outskirts, searching for the flags of either side's commanders. The white troops were being slaughtered to the point that the ground ran red with their blood, and they had already been forced into the stream itself. The black armored troops once again changed their battle formation, forming up into one long line. Clearly they had been trained well, and as Zhou Yu observed the battlefield, it was as if there was an invisible thread connecting those thousands of people together as they charged in different directions, trying to break through their enemies' defenses. There was no flag for the commander, but every one of the troops knew where the commander was. The battle prowess of this troop was already the highest amongst all of the ones that Zhou Yu had seen in his life, and he no longer hesitated, spurring his horse on to charge right in. But, just in that instant, the white troops counter-attacked, and their soldiers rushed over, shouting war cries loudly. Listening to those accents, Zhou Yu thought that they were northerners, and their war horses didn't look like southern horses either, so he pulled back in retreat. But the other side clearly didn't want to let him go, and in an instant some tens of people rushed towards him in hot pursuit. In his heart, Zhou Yu cried out his bitter grievances, "What are you chasing me for?" And with that, he turned the horse's head around, rushing towards the black armored troops. The two sides were currently in the heat of battle, and neither of them had ever expected a person to come charging in between them. The sky was also darkening, and the scene fell into chaos. What person is that? The black armored troops commander was tall and lithe, and with his legs clasped around his horse's flanks, he waved his long halberd and went rushing in, only to see, with a turn of his head, that hothead, with his stumbling, unintentional progress, who had blundered right into the battle formation. His subordinates shouted, "Zagong! We don't know that person's background." "Retreat!" the commander cried. The black armored troops immediately retreated like the tide, but the white troops latched onto pursuing Zhou Yu like a winding snake. Zhou Yu had no choice but to pull out his sword as he galloped away at high speed. With a clang, the sound of the ancient sword Chaijun rubbing against the sheath rang out clearly, echoing through the mountain valleys, as if it was a dragon's roar in that growing twilight. "Good sword," the commander cried. In that moment, Zhou Yu had no way to respond, but the white armored soldiers had already caught up to him, and one of them thrust out with a spear. With a bend of his body, Zhou Yu flipped off the back of his horse, hanging upside down off of it, before flipping up swiftly from the other side. The ancient sword flashed with a cold light, and with a ding, it sliced the tip of the spear into two. "Good." This time, the black armored troops thundered with applause. Zhou Yu's forehead was covered in sweat as he saw that several of the white-clad soldiers had already raced up, and their long spears blocked all his routes. Zhou Yu flew into the air, his martial robe fluttering, as he swung his long sword. In midair, he flipped over and turned, facing behind him as his long sword swung in a beautiful circle, before his body flew backwards in the air. With one foot, he stepped on his horse's head, before executing another clean, easy backwards flip. The war horse let out a long whine as it continued to neigh, and Zhou Yu's silhouette swept past as it landed back on the horse. In this moment, Zhou Yu had already escaped the ambush, and he reappeared some tens of steps away. That lithe, tall commander of the black armored troops lifted his helmet, revealing a pair of sharp, bright eyes. Right after, He placed his halberd behind his back, before retrieving an arrow, knocking it to the bow, and shouting, "Ambush!" In that instant, the black-armored troops backed away with a shoo like a group of ants, and Zhou Yu's eyes reflected the silhouette of that tall, powerful commander under the crimson red of the dying sun. The light reflected off the tip of the arrow. At the same time, the white troop soldiers rushed up once more, arrows flying like moths towards them. Zhou Yu realized that, even if he could split himself into thousands, he had no way to avoid this hail of arrows. He could only let fate decide, and he flattened himself against the back of his horse, tightly squeezing his eyes shut. In that instant, both sides loosed arrows at the same time. As soon as he loosed an arrow, the black-armored commander reached back, pulled out another, knocked it, and loosed it. Like an illusion, that first arrow headed directly for the sharp arrow flying towards Zhou Yu, and it instantly split that long arrow into two. With another arrow, the soldier right behind Zhou Yu pursuing him fell off his horse. The third, the fourth, and the rest of the arrow shafts flew like a rain of flower blossoms through the sky. With that, the white troops fell, men and horses both, into a mess on the ground. The black-armored troops let out a shout as they rushed forward like a tidal wave to slaughter. The white troops could sense that defeat was coming, and they had no energy left to defend. The two sides began their last round of assault. In the battle formation, Zhou Yu bumped around back and forth as he did his best to control his horse, but suddenly the back of his collar tightened, and he was lifted into the air by a powerful arm. "What is a scholar doing out here?" That chilly tone betrayed that it was the commander's voice, and right after, Zhou Yu began to struggle with great effort, shouting, "General, please have mercy. I am." Before he finished speaking, that commander conveniently flattened his palm, chopping down with the side of his hand against Zhou Yu's neck. Zhou Yu's vision instantly grew dark, and he fell backwards on his horse, unconscious. The black-armored commander moved Zhou Yu to sit behind him on his own horse, before roaring, "Men, retreat!" A gong sounded in a rhythm of retreat. The white-clad troops had already retreated into the wilderness, too tired to keep fighting, but the black-armored troops still raced behind, as if they had not yet fought their fill. There were those who let loose curse upon curse for their enemy to keep fighting them, and others who kept firing arrow after arrow. End chapter. Twin Jades of Jiangdong. Chapter 6. Chang'an. In the depths of night, the area within the mountain range was bright with light as the main camp of the black-armored troops were filled with a forest of torches. A bucket of water was poured onto Zhou Yu's head. Zhou Yu woke at that. That martial strike to the back of his neck hadn't been very forceful, but it had been very precise. It was clear that the man saw the talent in him, so he was merciful in his strike. Zhou Yu lifted his head to watch that person, who had already changed into a black robe, lean against one side of his seat in a careless fashion. Of his long, slender fingers, his little finger was digging around in his ear, and though his mannerism seemed to be lazy, he gave off an aura of danger. Upon observation, that person was 9 chi tall. His eyebrows were as sharp as a sword's blade, the bridge of his nose stood tall, his lips were as if they were carved out of stone, and the side silhouette of his face held a little bit of the craggliness of the Sub-A people. His eyes were set deep in his face, and there was a hint of an azure jade color in those dark irises. He was clad in a dowdy martial robe, and though his feet were bare, his shoulders were broad and his legs were long. Overall, his build was very good. "State your full name, and why you have come, in full detail," that martial general said indifferently. Zhou Yu saw that there was a jade tally dangling from that martial general's waist, and his heart gave a thump. "This junior is called Zhou Yu, courtesy name Gongjin." Zhou Yu knew that this person was not one that he could afford to offend, be it from those skills he had displayed with those few arrows just now, or by the outfit he was clad in. "You is as fine as jade," the martial general said casually, not even looking at Zhou Yu properly, as he had been this entire time. "Beautiful jade is afraid of being broken, So why have you come to this battlefield filled with troops and horses? You admire this marquis so much. This, Zhou Yu didn't know if laughing or crying was the best recourse, so he said, cupping his hands together in a salute, this junior was originally heading into Luoyang to visit a friend, and accidentally, without meaning to, stumbled into the general's formation. The marshal general finally turned his head, looking Zhou Yu over from head to toe, before fixing his gaze on him. Visiting a friend, the marshal general asked, lifting his eyebrows very slightly. Gao Shun, bring this brat's sword over. A captain brought the ancient sword that had been taken from Zhou Yu in, holding it with both hands. Upon hearing the words Gao Shun, Zhou Yu felt a sudden chill out of nowhere, as if he had heard this name somewhere before. Gao Shun, Gao Shun, Gao Shun, wasn't Gao Shun that person's? No matter who he met, nothing could beat the shock of meeting this fellow. Zhou Yu finally guessed this person's identity. This was Lu Bu. Lu Fengxian. In Shuzhou, Zhou Yu had long since heard of his great name. It was rumored that this person's eyes could shoot light, his body was surrounded by a haze of blood, and he was fully capable of killing even his own father and brothers. His thoughts were cruel and poisonous, and he was a short-sighted, petty man who had eyes but lacked pupils. But upon observing the person in front of him, he didn't look at all as if he was the marquis of a major village, Lu Bu, who had just killed Ding Yuan and turned to pledge his allegiance to that dong thief. When Zhou Yu was young, he had often heard the monks of Shuzhou discuss at length, and he knew that words came from the heart. Someone's personality would more or less be revealed somewhat on their face. Narrow-minded, petty people would have eyebrows that were joined together, and those with triangular eyes with the corners tilted up often had hidden schemes. But, with Lu Bu's visage, he was clearly a handsome man whose martial skills far surpassed the ordinary. Zhou Yu had no way at all to connect this calm, relaxed great general in front of him to the dark, evil, petty man of cruel and vicious actions that the legends painted him as. The famed sword Chai Jun. Lu Bu calmly held out his palm, and Gao Shun, in a reverent manner, placed the ancient sword in his hand. Lu Bu remarked lazily, it came from the great master Ouyu's hands and is 3 chi and 6 fen in length. Its body was crafted from metal that came outside of the heavens, its grip made from flaming bloodwood, and the ripple patterns on the length were crafted in fire. The fire of the south defeats the metal of the west, and all the Nanmingli fire will belong to Chu. And during the spring and autumn and warring states periods, the Zhenqiu sword of Chu, Wu Zixu, took his own life with this very sword. Zhou Yu said, Commandant Lu has a keen gaze. With these words of Lu Bu's, no matter how low his opinion of him was before due to the rumors, in that instant he still felt a wave of heartfelt admiration. It seemed like Lu Bu was someone who loved weapons, otherwise he wouldn't know as much about famous historical swords as if they were his family treasures. Wu Zixu had people hang his head from the city walls, Lu Bu said, narrowing his eyes, so that he could watch with his own eyes as the country of Chu fell. After the city fell, the Crimson Army didn't know where to go. 30 years later, despite being given a title as the Zhenqiu sword by the king of Chu, many years had passed after the last dynasty, and the sword remained a rare and lost treasure that didn't see the light of day. 16 years ago, the Chaijun sword once again reappeared in Changsha. What connection do you have to the Sun family? Lu Bu asked. If I am not mistaken, there is a person I'm thinking of who ought to be your father. Zhou Yu never expected that Lu Bu would be able to dig out everything of his family history from a single sword. Who had said that this person had brawn but not brains? You are Lu Baiao's son? Lu Bu asked coldly. A look of despair writ itself across Zhou Yu's face. Marquis, he responded earnestly. You've guessed wrong. Oh. Lu Bu's expression was one of bafflement. He asked, who are you then? Zhou Yu. He didn't know why, but Zhou Yu wanted to break out into explosive laughter. But despite the fact that this bastard had guessed wrong, his martial skills were still nothing to scoff at. If he did begin to laugh and Lu Bu cut him down for it, it wouldn't have been worth it at all. "This junior is named Zhou Yu," he said. "My father, now passed, was the commandant of Luoyang, Zhou Yi." And saying this, Zhou Yu addressed his father's matters that he knew of in detail, only cutting out the matter with Hua Xiong. He only mentioned that 3 years ago, his father had died in the Yellow Turban Rebellion. Zhou Yu was afraid that if he mentioned that he and the Sun family were old family friends, then on the off chance that Lu Bu and Sun Jian were enemies, it would put himself in a dangerous position. Just like that, he glossed over the origins of the sword. "Since things are like that," Lu Bu said, "your Zhou family has held that government role for 3 generations, so you must have connections in Luoyang. Ah well, this marquis will do you a favor at little cost to himself and bring you into the city." Zhou Yu let out a breath in relief, before he hurried to say, "You will never forget that the marquis saved his life. What can this junior do for the general?" Sun Jian had joined the alliance against Dong. Lu Bu was under Dong Zhou's command, Zhou Yu and Sun Sa were in the same camp as Sun Jian. With the way things were, Zhou Yu was enemies with the person in front of him, and yet, without knowing why, he couldn't feel irritated at the kind of person that Lu Bu was. "Let me think." Lu Bu then pondered for a while, before he said, "Come play a game of chess with me then." "That bastard So Sa never plays chess with this marquis, so it gets very boring." So, Zhou Yu happily laid out the chessboard, and he and Lu Bu faced off. This match lasted well into the night. In the beginning, Lu Bu was careless towards his enemy, but towards the second half of the night he began to grow serious. In the depths of the evening, Lu Bu drank some wine, and in the middle of the game, he waved his hand to indicate he wasn't going to play anymore. He then went to lay down on his bed, no longer heeding Zhou Yu. As soon as he laid down, he fell asleep. Zhou Yu put away the pieces. When he exited the tent, Gao Shun was waiting there, saying, "Please come with me." Zhou Yu nodded slightly, knowing that at least for today, there would be no more danger. He followed after Gao Shun, asking, "I hear that the Changsha prefect Sun Jian's troops. You know the Sun family?" Gao Shun asked. Zhou Yu hesitated a little. It would be inconvenient for him to reveal his connections with Sun Sa, and he cupped his hands as he said, "If I may ask General Gao, are the Marquis and Sun Jian?" "No," Gao Shun replied. "It's nothing." Gao Shun avoided responding directly to the question, and Zhou Yu also managed to miraculously sidestep it, both of them coming to a tacit understanding. Gao Shun brought Zhou Yu to an already set-up tent and let him rest. After the night passed, before the sky had even lightened for a new day, Lu Bu's black-armored troops had already packed up camp. There was not a single hair out of place throughout the entire area as the soldiers took down their tents, rolled up their bedrolls, and led their horses away. Zhou Yu's eyes were still hazy with sleep, as he was a little unaccustomed to this. On the road, the troops brought over breakfast to eat with him. Zhou Yu had already asked around before, so he knew that this time Lu Bu had come out to slow the pace of the coalition's troops, and the unlucky white armored troops whose horses and men had been cut down by him was exactly the general on the white horse, Gong Sun Zan's men. Yuan Shao and his group had formed the coalition against Dong, and though they claimed to be fighting to punish the traitor to the country and restore the emperor to his throne, insidiously, they let Gong Sun Zan be the vanguard. To begin with, Gong Sun Zan already lacked fighting spirit, and in this very first battle he had run right into this iron wall of Lu Bu. After both sides hacked away at each other for a day and a night, Gong Sun Zan couldn't fight off their enemy and sent a messenger back to request assistance from Yuan Shao, but the result was that none of the allied troops had come at all. That soldier exaggerated Lu Bu's valor over 10 times what it actually was, and the corners of Zhou Yu's mouth twitched as he listened. He could see the awe the troops held towards their commander. Zhou Yu followed behind the black armored troops, stopping and going. He wasn't afraid of anything aside from Sun Sa being in danger. As of today, Dong Zhou was the most powerful, and Lu Bu had even killed his adoptive father Ding Yuan to ally with him. Sun Jian's coalition was nothing more than a pile of loose sand, and he was afraid that it wouldn't be easy to win this battle. After entering Hongnan County, Luoyang was already not too far away. 3 days of travel later, when the army arrived at Luoyang, Zhou Yu mixed in with the troops to enter the city. They weren't even asked for travel passes. Upon seeing that such strict inspections were underway to enter the city, Zhou Yu was grateful that his luck had been good and he had followed Lu Bu, otherwise he would have had to waste a lot of effort. After entering the city, Gao Shun led the troops towards the barracks in the north. Zhou Yu stopped, and a commander came over, saying to him, "Lu Zonglang has spoken, you no longer need to follow anymore, go at your own convenience." Zhou Yu originally wanted to thank him personally, because despite Lu Bu's status, he probably wouldn't mind Zhou Yu thanking him once more. However, that commander who had brought the message was pretty benevolent, adding, "If you run into any difficulties, all you have to do is come by the Zhonglang general's camp and mention it." Thanks. At this moment, Zhou Yu's heart was filled with conflict. It was clear that the two of them were enemies, but at such a critical moment, Lu Bu had actually given him the most help. After seeing the troops leave, an autumn breeze blew by as Zhou Yu stood, all alone, in front of the bronze-smith street. Suddenly, he felt at a loss for what to do. He had entered the capital once as a youth, and since then a decade had passed. Zhou Yu couldn't resist rejoicing that he had left Shizhu on his own and walked into a new land. Otherwise, there would have been too many things he didn't understand, and he wouldn't have been able to see the world outside of Jiangnan. Compared to 10 years ago, Luoyang had changed greatly. The most obvious thing was that there were less people, and all of the people walking along the street bore expressions of wariness, as if they were on high alert because of some matter. In the distance, jackdaws crowed, before they rose as a flock and flew towards the palace. The stalls on either side of the street had already closed up for the day. Zhou Yu racked his brain for a moment. Who should he go find? Should he first stay at an inn for the night, or should he go find someone? It was still early. After Zhou Yu thought for a moment, he remembered that back in the day, his father had quite a number of good friends, and there was one among them named Jiao Mao. When Zhou Yu had bid farewell to this world, the Jiao family had specially dispatched someone with a customary monetary gift, so he might as well go seek out Jiao Mao first. In the past, Jiao Mao had held the position of the governor of Yanzhou, but now he had already become the prefect of Dong County. Zhou Yu asked for directions as he went and found that he was still in Luoyang as expected. With that, he no longer hesitated, and he mounted his horse and headed towards the western part of the city to find Jiao Mao. As he went, once the people of Luoyang saw Zhou Yu, all of them, whether man or woman, gathered to stare curiously at him. Zhou Yu knew that he was wearing the clothes of the Jiangnan region, and his features didn't look like those from the Central Plains. To avoid drawing attention to himself, he could only spur his horse forward with trepidation in his heart. The main gates of the Jiao manor were shut tight, and a few bare branches of persimmon trees jutted out over the garden wall. Outside, yellow leaves covered the entire alley, having not been swept up by anyone. Zhou Yu knocked on the door a few times, but no one responded, so he circled around to the back door and shouted a few times, with the same result. But, after seeing the tracks outside the back gate, it seemed as if there had been someone living here for a long time, and it didn't seem like an empty house with no occupants. "Prefect Jiao!" Zhou Yu shouted again. The courtyard was completely still, and a sense of foreboding suddenly arose in Zhou Yu's heart as he seemed to see the tragedy of Jiao Mao's family being annihilated playing out in front of his eyes. He hesitated for a moment, but in the end decided to take the risk and climb up to take a look. With his body pressed up against the wall, Zhou Yu leapt upwards. He thought of Sun Sa, and he was torn between laughter and tears. If he was here right now, perhaps he'd have already flipped over the wall. Just as he was thinking it, he climbed to the top of the garden wall, but when he looked down, he was greatly startled. There were people in the courtyard. Two old men, their hair and beards already going grey, sat underneath a tree, playing chess. As soon as Zhou Yu swept his gaze over that chessboard, he immediately understood that they were both masters. What was going on? Wasn't Jiao Mao away? Just as Zhou Yu was about to hop down and knock on the door again, he unintentionally bumped into a tree branch, causing a commotion. Who? One of the old men had a sharp gaze, and he immediately discovered Zhou Yu. Startled, Zhou Yu trod on the tree branch and broke it, plummeting down the persimmon tree, one foot landing on the chessboard. Ah! The two old men rushed around frantically, while Zhou Yu, who hadn't expected for anyone to be in the yard at all, hurried to rise, cutting a sorry figure as he did. The first old man was incandescent with rage, and he upended the chessboard over Zhou Yu's head. Where did this unruly swine come from? Zhou Yu knew that he had gotten himself into trouble, and he hurried to alternate between cleaning up the board for the two old men, dusting off their robes, and pouring them tea. When he had fallen in such a sorry way just now, he hadn't had a chance to look closely, but now that he was calmer, he managed to sneak a few glances at the two of them as he pretended to have accidentally stumbled in. What he found was that although the two old men were both wearing casual clothing, they both had a lofty air about them. Zhou Yu took note of that, and determined that one of these men must be the master of this household, Jiao Mao. Keeping the door shut was probably to avoid any visitors from the court. Junior has overstepped, Zhou Yu said as he hurried to bow. I have disturbed your match, but great men care not for the actions of base ones. Please don't take it to heart. Zhou Yu returned the black and white pieces to their respective places, at which the two old men's expressions grew surprised. The old man with the darker hair, wearing the casual outfit of an official, said, Since you have come, then be at ease. Stand there first, Ba. Primly and properly, Zhou Yu poured out tea for the two old men, thinking to himself, the one in a better mood was probably the guest. The other old man wearing a long robe made of rough material let out an angry huff as he glared at Zhou Yu, clearly furious that his ruse of being away from home had been seen through. Zhou Yu didn't dare to say more, but he knew very clearly, this person should be the master of this estate, Jiao Mao. This connected ring move of the minister of the masses is very dangerous. Jiao Mao said, one hand stroking his beard. Are you not afraid that you'll fall prey to the catching a turtle already within a jar tactic? Zhou Yu immediately realized. Minister of the masses, the minister of the masses, the minister of works, and the grand commandant made up the three ministers, and this person in front of him who Jiao Mao had called the minister of the masses was, without a doubt, Wang Yun. At this, Wang Yun merely stroked the beard hairs near his mouth and smiled gently. The chess pieces that our young friend has laid out for me have become a connected ring play without my knowledge. Jiao Mao put down another piece, and Wang Yun responded in kind. Jiao Mao said, Does the minister of the masses hold such confidence in this match? In this world, most matters are not ones I have any confidence in, Wang Yun said. Just now, weren't we quite set in our course, when this little friend took us off our path as well? Jiao Mao laughed loudly, and with a push of the chessboard, he said, I'm done, just let it be like this ba. Wang Yun rose and nodded, cupping his hands in Jiao Mao's direction. Zhou Yu thought for a moment, but just as he was about to open his mouth, Wang Yun shot Zhou Yu a look, before glancing at Jiao Mao, a question in his gaze. How about this little friend? But Jiao Mao interrupted. I still need to scold him properly. All right, Wang Yun responded, amused. Then I'll take my leave. Jiao Mao sent Wang Yun to the backyard, and Zhou Yu followed them to the door. As soon as Wang Yun went out the gates and left the alley, Jiao Mao shut the doors, and multiple people rose from the surrounding tea stalls, food stalls, and wine stalls. They were all normal citizens, and they came to protect Wang Yun as he left. Zhou Yu thought to himself that as expected, his perception was not strong enough. This was his first trip out of Jiangnan, he really hadn't been wary enough. After Chiao Mao sent Wang Yun off, he passed through the outside corridor on his own. Zhou Yu followed behind, but after only a few steps, a servant brought over a bronze basin for Chiao Mao to wash his hands and face in. Seeing this opportunity, Zhou Yu stood to one side and said, "Prefect Chiao, this junior." Chiao Mao let out a heavy grunt, before he tossed the towel into the basin and leveled a glare at Zhou Yu. "You look exactly like your father, and your crafty cunning is also very similar. You're also as unafraid of death as your father was. How come you've come to Luoyang?" Zhou Yu was stunned. "Prefect Chiao recognizes me. Who else could you be but Zhou Yi's son?" Chiao Mao said. "All of the people in Luoyang are running away, why are you coming to seek your death?" As if in explanation, Zhou Yu repeated, "Junior's family, something's happened in Shizhu." Chiao Mao immediately strode away. Zhou Yu followed him at a moderate pace, finishing his explanation of why he had come to Luoyang. Chiao Mao sat down in the hall and said, "Ah well. You didn't go anywhere else, you came directly to my Chiao manor. Junior would also like to request Uncle Chiao to help me search, on behalf of our two families' friendship," Zhou Yu said. The 36 families of orphans and widows in Shizhu would shed tears of gratitude in response. Chiao Mao ordered, "Sit ba." With that, the master and the guest each sat down at their own seat. The servants brought in wine and food, and Zhou Yu was silent for a moment before he waved his hand, indicating that he wouldn't drink wine, as he poured a cup of tea to drink. Chiao Mao let out a sigh, saying, "It is not that I don't wish to assist you, and there is no harm in helping you investigate, but you've seen what the situation is like now. This old man doesn't even dare to set foot outside, and in these past few days, I've been excusing myself on account of an illness to avoid going to court sessions. How can I start investigating?" Zhou Yu straightened up slightly, but he didn't say anything. After thinking deeply for a moment, Chiao Mao continued, "Since your father is Zhou Yi, then logically speaking, your Zhou family has no reason to side with Dongzhou, so there's no problem in speaking openly with you." Zhou Yu sighed and nodded, but as before, he didn't say anything. Chiao Mao's meaning was very clear to him in his heart. Zhou Yi died in Huaxiang's grasp, and at the bottom of it, it was quite likely that Dongzhou had helped to bring that very matter about. Therefore, it was impossible that he would betray Chiao Mao and throw his lot in with Dongzhou. "What is the situation in Luoyang?" Zhou Yu asked. "Though nephew has been negligent in his practice of martial arts, he still holds a little skill in it. Since Uncle Chiao is here, if there is anything that nephew can do to be of use, please don't hesitate to let me know." Chiao Mao sipped a mouthful of wine, his old face going bright red. He let out a long breath before saying, "Yuan Shao is currently outside Hulao Pass, and he's arranged a meeting with all of the marquises and kings who are loyal to the throne. If my guess isn't wrong, then it should be happening in the coming few days." Zhou Yu held his cup of water, thinking of all he had seen and heard in these few days. His worry was that the coalition wouldn't come together this easily. As expected, Chiao Mao continued, "But no one can guarantee that they'll come together. You might as well stay here and rest. Wait until after the allied troops enter the city to continue." "Has the Changsha prefect Sun Jian also come?" Zhou Yu asked. Chiao Mao responded, "This old man actually forgot about that. While your father was alive, he and Sun Jian were colleagues. Sun Jian and his sons are currently in front of Hulao Pass. In a few days, after my distant cousin enters the city, I'll write a letter. You go with him, have Sun Jian recommend you to Yuan Shao, and that's that." Zhou Yu didn't ask any more, instead heading forward to formally and properly kowtow once to Chiao Mao. However, Chiao Mao waved his hand and said, "Rise ba. Human lives end as easily as the grasses, This old man's hard pressed to keep his own life intact, and who knows if I'll be able to survive these next days. If something does happen in my household, don't blame this old man for dragging you down, that's all. Naturally, I will not, Zhou Yu responded. Since I'm temporarily residing in uncle's home, if anything arises, please feel free to order this nephew around. The corners of Qiao Mao's mouth quirked up, and as he watched Zhou Yu, he began to smile. He nodded a few times. Young man, Qiao Mao said, not bad. Your father had always been an upright man as he lived, and after he passed, this old man often thought of him. Now that there's one less of us here to sit together, with a cup in hand, to chat, Now that you've come, then take your father's place and keep this old man company as he drinks a cup of wine. End chapter.